As we continue to monitor the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, there is an increasing rise in calls for a two-state solution to end the war in Gaza. Hello again and thank you for joining us. This is World Now on TVC News. I am Kemi Oladiemo. With several Western nations now recognizing Palestinian statehood, U.S. President Donald Trump's decision to side decisively with Israel has drawn sharp condemnation. Across cities, protesters have rallied, especially near U.S. embassies and in major public squares, voicing their support for Palestinians and condemning U.S. policy. In New York, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a fiery speech at the UN General Assembly, blasting Western recognition moves as a mark of shame, he says, and asserting they send the message that murdering Jews pays off. His address triggered mass walkouts from dozens of delegations inside the chamber. During his speech, Prime Minister Netanyahu unveiled a map he called the curse, pointing to what he called Iranian proxy groups across the Middle East. He also cited Israel's campaigns against Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, and Iran to underscore his argument that the region is under threat. Prime Minister Netanyahu also thanked Donald Trump for the U.S.'s involvement in striking Iran's Fordo nuclear installation and drew parallels between Hamas's October the 7th, 2023 attack and 9/11, accusing shared enemies of chanting death to America.
Ladies and gentlemen, last year, I stood at this podium and I showed this map. This map. It shows the curse of Iran's terror axis. This axis threatened the peace of the entire world. It threatened the stability of our region and the very existence of my country, Israel. Iran was rapidly developing a massive nuclear weapons program and a massive ballistic missile program. These were meant not only to destroy Israel, they were meant also to threaten the United States and blackmail nations everywhere. From Gaza, Yahya Sinwar dispatched waves of Hamas terrorists. They stormed into Israel on October 7th and committed acts of unspeakable savagery. From Lebanon, Hassan Nasrallah had launched thousands of missiles and rockets at our cities, terrorizing our citizens. In Syria, the murderous dictator Assad hosted Iran's forces, tightening a noose of death around our throats. In Yemen, the Houthis launched ballistic missiles at Israel while choking global trade at the mouth of the Red Sea. So what's happened over the past year? We've hammered the Houthis, including yesterday. We crushed the bulk of Hamas's terror machine. We crippled Hezbollah, taking out most of its leaders and much of its weapons arsenal. You remember those beepers, the pagers?
All right, now, so global affairs analyst Kunle Falowo joins me now live to speak about the ongoing United Nations General Assembly, especially as it has to do with the address of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. And of course, you know how the world is panning now, or most of the world is panning now on recognizing the Palestine statehood. Thanks a lot, Mr. Falowo, for joining us at this time on The World Now. Right. So
Thanks,
tell us what you make of PM Netanyahu's address. Of course, he faced what has been called a largely a vacated room following the walkout by some persons.
This is very unprecedented. Um, it hasn't happened in a long time, and we're seeing not just commoners, not just ordinary international citizens. We're looking at influential people in their individual state, in their individual country, and they're not in terms of in parley with Benjamin Netanyahu and his agenda currently. The way that he wants to win the war is not something that everybody is in agreement with. If you look at some of the countries that are starting to recognize a Palestinian state, the list is increasingly growing. And also, like you've mentioned in the prologue, it's 157 member states that have gone ahead and recognized a Palestinian state, which is a very a pivotal role in the sense of the war and the the massive famine and the devastation happening in Gaza and its environs currently.
Right, but how far-reaching are these? How would you qualify the weight of 157 countries recognizing a two-state solution, to end the war? Of course, it says a lot when you look at the fact that 83% of world leaders are saying this is what they want. But in terms of what Hamas is describing it as, saying it's showing that Israel is increasingly getting more and more isolated. Do you think these two are the same? Do they mean the same?
Well, to start with, it's a step in the right direction. If other international countries are saying, hey, we're going to vote to recognize a Palestinian state and also have a two-state solution, which something that Netanyahu is not comfortable with, to say the least. He does not want a two-state entity happening in that area. But moving forward to having diplomacy in the sense that having all of those countries, and not just only those countries, we're looking at individual countries like UK, Canada, France, Portugal, Australia, recognizing a Palestinian state. This means that those countries are open to negotiating and talking business and trade and investment and other things. And it accords them the respect of a statehood. But it doesn't really go far. The reason I said that is because in as much as it's been recognized as a state, that's hypothetically, in theory, there still needs to be a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that that really happens. Just recognizing Palestinian state is not going to do the magic. There still has to be a lot of framework that has to be designed to ensure that this actually comes to reality. So this is just a first step in a lot of more multiple steps that needs to be taken.
And your last answer, is it also fueled by the fact that more Western nations may have, now acceded to the two-state solution, but that doesn't include the U.S., which is still in support? We also saw Benjamin Netanyahu thanking the U.S. for its continued support.
Well, the thing with President Trump, we never know what's going to happen in the next 24 hours. Currently, he is touting that he has some peace plan that he wants to discuss with Mr. Netanyahu, and this is allegedly it's happening on Monday. So in another 48 hours, we're all going to be able to see what will come off those conversations and those negotiations. He had told the public that he has some peace talks and some negotiations about Gaza and the war in between Israel and Palestinian and all of that. So let's wait and see what happens after the meeting between the United States government, well, particularly President Trump and Netanyahu after Monday, and see if there's going to be a policy change or a change of heart, eventually. But another interesting thing I wanted to also identify is that Mr. Trump it's mentioned that he would not support the annexation of
Absolutely. Right.
Gaza
Right.
by the Israeli. So that's another pointer that maybe there might be some policy changes to come, but how far reaching that would be is still up in the air.
Right, and I was coming to that, what you make of, Trump already saying ahead of that meeting on Monday that he will not allow Netanyahu to annex West Bank. But okay, like you have said, maybe we should just put a hold on that and wait to see what will happen on Monday. But Ireland still, I believe, addressing the United Nations General Assembly, has also called on Israel's military supplies to reflect carefully on supporting the war, saying there cannot be business as usual in the face of genocide. And I believe Ireland is building on the United Nations report that has described Israel's action in the West Bank, I mean in Gaza, as genocidal. So how do you reflect on Ireland's position and, future U.S.-Israel relations?
Well, another angle to look at that is not just Ireland that's been wary and very there are literally a lot of countries, other European Western countries are really tired of the antics of the Israeli the Israeli cause championed by Benjamin Netanyahu. We're all looking for a realistic, meaningful, fair solution to the crisis and to the war in that area. For context, whatever what happened in October 2023 by the Hamas group, where 1,200 people were killed and 251 people kidnapped. It's condemnable. It's internationally, everybody frowns upon that. But in context, are we going to go on with the bloodbath? And that's the main concern. There has to be a way, there has to be a solution that a reoccurrence would not happen again. And after that incident in 2023, there are reports that over 86,000 people in Gaza and in that area have been killed by the Israeli team. So all of these unnecessary killings are not justifiable in any way, shape, or form. So there has to be some political solutions to it. And now, that aside, most importantly, the European Commission have also come out to say, look, we're not doing business. It's not going to be business as usual with Israel, because they're really not acting in conformity with international laws, and now they're also touting to restrict trade and come up with economic sanctions against Israel. So across board, it's just not Ireland. The Western allies, with exception to the United States, of course, are looking for other ways to make sure that they put a lot of pressure on Israel to change its course. So it's happening, but not at the pace that we anticipate, because it's dragged so long for so much time, and people have been dying. But let's just see what happens. But we're seeing that there are a lot of changes politically and internationally. There's a lot of condemnation, and the Israeli team are, in as much as they're not going to come out to acknowledge that, they're feeling the bite already.
Right, and of course, Nigeria has also had its say on the matter, also, supporting the two-state solution, but hasn't recognized the Palestine statehood. It has, of course, addressed the nation, addressed the world, I should say, of course, asking that the victims of the war be protected, despite the defiance of the Prime Minister of Israel. But what are your takeaways from Vice President Kashim Shettima's address on this matter?
Well, in as much as as international bodies, as international economy or individual states share, because we all share the same common greed of taking care of other people and making sure that we have countries that work successfully and not have bloodshed unnecessarily. I mean, it's a political statement. Just shows where Nigeria aligns with in terms of international politics. But I would say that, to be honest, frankly, um, Nigeria might not, or any statement coming out of Nigeria might not be taken very seriously, because there are a lot of impending problems as security matters that needs to be addressed by you know those government entities. So having to talk about international politics when your home is in disarray is not something that will be very your words are not going to be very potent or strong in terms of international recognition as it pertains to international crisis. But be that as it may, at least we know where Nigeria stands and the leadership stands in that war right now.
Kunle Falowo, let's put you on hold. We'll come back to talking some more about this topic after the break. Please stay with us.
Power, politics, and accountability on fireworks. No seat is too high. No question.
All right, let's take you back to our conversation with global affairs analyst Kunle Falowo, who has been speaking in the last few minutes about the Prime Minister of Israel's address at the ongoing United Nations General Assembly in New York, the United States. Of course, even before that, a lot has been happening over there for this high-powered meeting, which is ending this weekend. But let me take you back to your earlier point, Kunle Falowo, and thanks a lot for holding on. I asked earlier on about your take on Vice President Kashim Shettima's address to delegates, where he said the two-state solution is the most dignified path to ensuring lasting peace between Israel and Palestine. The Vice President went on to say that it is still, it's coming from a place of knowledge. It can relate with what the victims there are facing, because it's still, it has faced war and is still feeding and taking care of, collateral damages of terrorism. I'm talking about the victims. I'm talking about residents, ordinary residents in the Northeast, where terrorism has, been plaguing for a while now. How do you relate that with your earlier position?
Like I said, Nigeria is one of the highly respected African country in the United Nations. Just politically, it's a good thing that Nigeria is coming out to support and to lend their voices to what's happening in Israel and in the Gaza and all of those areas, and the war in that area against the Palestinians, and joining the team and the legion of international outcry to say that, look, a two-member state, a two-state solution will be a preferable solution to this crisis. And once and for all, let the Palestinians decide their fate, and let Israel as a country, let these both entities operate independently of each other and respect each other, and manage your own governance and affairs without any issues or concerns. I mean, that's laudable, but I would say that making sure also that your home is also something that that paints a lot of picture of progress and seriousness in terms of security concerns, addressing security concerns internally in Nigeria. That way, your words out there in the international community will be respected and it will be resounding. Yes, politically, it is correct that the Nigerian government is coming out to voice their opinions and recommendations, but also for your voice to lend enough power and strength and international recognition, you have to do your homework in your home, and and security concerns in Nigeria is not something to write home about. We all know that. So that needs to be also put into consideration. Tidy your home before you come out and start lecturing other folks.
Absolutely. But of course, just saying anyway, even though I would soon move on, all the countries there, being represented at UNGA, of course, are coming from, relative or varying degrees of terrorism concerns in their own country. But of course, that doesn't stop them, from having a say on international affairs. After all, I believe that's what UNGA, or the United Nations concept, is all about. But let me take you up on the news I just read now about Iran. Of course, Israel is also including Iran in this ongoing onslaught, so to speak, the curse, as it describes the issues it's having with its neighbors. Well, now Iran has recalled its ambassadors from the UK, France, and Germany, following the recent sanctions slammed on Iran. What do you make of that?
Israel has done a lot of, carried out a lot of different airstrikes, and politically they've done some kind of harm, and a lot of their neighboring countries, and they're not really trusting Israel as it is. We all know what happened in the recent strike, and that's not something that would be encouraged. And a lot of countries, a lot of neighboring countries are not happy with what the stance of the Israeli military force, spearheaded by Netanyahu, is. I would also say that there seems to be some form of coalition, and also coalition in the sense that all of this Middle Eastern countries are coming together and trying to strike a one accord in a bid to face the Israeli team. But be that as it may, we all know that some other accusations that's been flying around, particularly from the side of the Israeli team, is that countries like the Lebanese country, and Syria and some other countries are harboring Hezbollah and other alleged terrorist organization, and the Israeli team is saying,
all right,
you need to kick them out, and so yes, it's something that everybody has to concentrate.
But I got sidetracked, I must confess, but by asking this last question, because I know we've run out of time, but I wanted to just speak to the fact that even though the Palestinian leader couldn't address delegates in person, but he has said he's open to dialogue, and he has thanked the countries that are now in support of his nation's bid. What do you think happens now? That will be the final question. Kindly make it brief.
Yes, absolutely. It's all a good step in the right direction. But I would mention that words alone cannot do this. Words alone cannot stop this hunger and intentional famine and starvation of innocent individuals in Gaza and its environs. But politically, a lot of people are starting to talk and welcoming conversations and political solutions to this crisis. It's just one of those major steps that needs to be taken. There's still more that needs to be done.
All right, Global Affairs Analyst Kule Falowo, we thank you very much for your contributions on The World Now.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And that's The World Now on TVC News. From all of us here, thanks a lot for watching.